I'm Rob Reeg. I'm the president of MasterCard Technologies. Really glad to be here with you this morning. So we wanted to talk a little bit about innovation and innovation as it relates specifically to security. So as that video kind of points out, our biggest asset is our network. We connect millions of tens of thousands of financial institutions, millions of merchants across those 210 countries, processing 50 billion transactions every year. So that is the asset the scope of the asset that we're trying to protect. All this is in an environment that's really changing significantly. The whole consumer shopping model is changing. The technology that you see is fundamental to how consumers want to shop and connect and pay for things. And it's really blurring that boundary between what's physical and what's digital. The technology innovation changes the actual relationship between the person making the purchase and the retailer themselves. Whether that option is using a PC, a phone, or a physical card, the number of devices that a consumer has to make payments continues to expand. And then the channels of a retailer expand as well, online, in-store, mobile. So that experience for the person making the sale and the person making the purchase, what they want is something safe and secure and consistent. This evolution of the payments landscape increases for merchants the opportunities to make sales, but it's also subject to more vulnerability from fraud. Simply put, more devices, more channels, more ways to make purchases creates more opportunities for bad guys to insert themselves. In this environment, you start to hear a lot about the Internet of Things, where the connectivity that we see today becomes part of our DNA. The complexity and the application of connected devices is going to drive how we pay in the future. And the key to all that is the trust level that's created with the person making the payment. Do they trust the device, the network, the system, that they feel comfortable giving that payment information and making that purchase? So our responsibility is to deliver the right advice, the right things to make that transaction safe. So if you kind of look at the Internet of Things by numbers, we've got approximately 7 billion people on the planet. In 2012, there were 8.7 connected devices. So already in 2012, we had more than one device per person. The analysts estimate that by 2020, there'll be 25 to 30 billion connected devices. That means the way people live and the convenience and the access they have is going to expand exponentially. Many people predict that the refrigerator will become the master control device. You have manufacturers today that are designing the next generation refrigerator so that I believe it's the left-hand panel is nothing but a computer screen. And I'm not sure why the left hand, but there's some focus group that said left is better than right. But what that means is the washing machine is talking to the refrigerator saying, I'm getting low on soap. The car is connected to the refrigerator saying it's time for an oil change and scheduling the oil change. And all these devices are working together to make life easier for the end consumer. But that only works if the payment's safe and people trust it. In Latin America alone, you've got 600 million people. And it's a population that's very adept at adopting new technology. Just look at how mobile phones exploded. We continue to see that growth in smartphone usage, and that's going to amplify because remember, it's not just a mobile phone, it's not just one device that the person's connecting with. In the future, it's going to be all these devices together. Today, online retail in Latin America accounts for about 2% of retail sales. When you look at the UK, it's over 13%, and China is over 12%. So that growth, where we see the real opportunity for growth is in online sales, and as these devices become more connected, that's going to create a boom in e-commerce, both cross-border and domestically, for Latin America. With that boom, though, there's going to be a downside. We have breaches today that are predicted by 2019 to impact losses of $2.1 trillion. So how do we make this connected world safe for everyone? More devices, more channels, more people. It's more risk, but for the people who keep their eye on this and are able to exploit it, we think it's a great opportunity for both merchants, networks, and partners to drive this and make this a safe environment for our consumer base. In the end, we want every connected device to be a secure commerce device. So all 25 billion of those devices in 2020, we want to make sure they can securely process a payment transaction when and where a consumer needs it. It's going to go all the way back to trust, though. Does that consumer trust the device, trust the network, trust the application that their money's safe and secure? We've been constantly stress testing our systems for years, and I can honestly say the payment system is safer than it's ever been. The problem still, though, is the criminals, the bad guys. They're more sophisticated, and they're better than they've ever been as well. When you look at cybercrime, that's what we believe is the biggest threat to both business and national economies. And I'll just give you some headlines. In MasterCard alone, our network is attacked 3 million times a month. 3 million times a month, someone is trying to break into our network. The City of London Police Commissioner says that cybercrime is more profitable than drug trade. The biggest bank robbery in history was uncovered this year, and it wasn't by bank robbers. It was a group of hackers who plundered $1 billion off more than 100 financial institutions with clicking a mouse. Unfortunately, the term data breaches is now part of the normal vocabulary. And that's just going to get bigger as the media noise increases when we see those. Consumer concerns around safety and security are on the rise. And last year, more than 1 billion consumer information records were stolen. That's 2,000 a day that are losing their personal data. Hacks are going to continue, and it's kind of the old saying, when they asked the bank robber why he robbed bank, he said that's where the money is. It's the same thing now digitally. Hackers go after merchants and banks because that's where the money is. Today, a hack occurs with malware insertion. On average, it takes 243 days for that hack to be discovered. That's a lot of time for people to extract information that's critical to our cardholders. And then it's not just the card itself that's so valuable. Because in the past, what you saw is a hack would occur. They'd steal all these card numbers, and then out in the dark web, out on bad sites like Rescator and places like that, the cards would go up for sale. Today, the criminals have figured out, when you look at what happened with Target, for example, the breach was uncovered. What happened to Target's stock? It went down. So now the bad guys have figured out, I will short the stock, I will make a bet that the company's stock is going to go down, and then I'll release the card numbers. Because once the card numbers are released, we can all then figure out and back into where the breach occurred. But by that time, it's too late. The Target stock went down. The bad guys make money on their stock bet, and they make money on selling every one of the impacted cards. The sophistication just keeps growing. For the consumer, you look at the focus groups MasterCard does, they're worried about who they do business with. So the statistics we've seen are 79% of consumers will only deal with cash if they don't trust the merchant. 63% of consumers, when they get a new card because their card was compromised, use that card less than they did the previous card. And a MasterCard advisor study looked at people who were breached. In the next 3 months, they lost 11% of revenue. So it's a huge impact to everybody in the industry, and it's why it's so important that we all work together and continue to focus on innovation in the security arena to make transactions safe. So I want to talk just a little bit about our approach to the industry and securing the ecosystem. We believe we have to take a layered approach. There's not one silver bullet that solves this issue. So layer one for us is securing the account. And you've got holograms, you've got chips, you've got PIN numbers in the physical world. In the digital world, we have tokenization, we have digital wallets to help protect the account. In the second layer, we're really looking at securing the cardholder themselves. And so you've had the emergence of devices that give cardholders the ability to authenticate themselves, to declare that they are who they are. So whether that's PINs, passwords, hardware tokens, now moving to more friendly biometric devices like fingerprints and facial scans, GPS, that helps us secure the cardholder themselves. And then the last part is the transaction. So with the data that we have today and the ability to analyze that data very quickly, we can stop fraud in a much more surgical and more holistic way than ever before. So one of the new innovations that just rolled out at MasterCard this year that I wanted to talk about was our safety net product. So MasterCard's been involved in the payment security arena for years with PCI, with EMVCo, but there's a lot of people involved in the transaction, more than ever before. You've got the networks, you've got issuers, you've got acquirers, you've got card manufacturers, you've got terminal manufacturers, you've got digital giants. We just heard Uber and Google talk about payments. They're in there as well. So we've got a lot more parties involved in the transaction that we all have to be focused on securing. So safety net is one way for us to look at that. When we look at how do we secure the world, we've got to make sure that we're doing it in a way that impacts as few cardholders as possible. So I want to play a short video featuring Johann Gerber. Johan is the head of our enterprise security processing products, and he's going to talk us through a real attack that happened and what we can do to fix that. So could you roll that video for me?
So I'm Johan Gerben. I'm here to talk to you about fraud in our network. What we're doing, how do we protect our consumers, how do we protect our customers, our banks, our merchants out there. Now, what you can see on behind me here is what happened a couple of years ago when a bunch of criminals got hold of a bank's credentials. They hacked into a system and created this massive fraud ring. And as you can see, these guys are extremely sophisticated. They took only 6 cards, they spread them out over 30 countries, and they just ran those 6 cards to an amount of almost $40 million. The first $5 million was done in less than 4 minutes. So if you step back from this, you can realize when these criminals are really attacking our network, it could be devastating. So one of the things that we've done in our network is really to make our network much more intelligent, and actually to integrate safety and security as part of the core feature, so that when a consumer uses his or her card, be that on a device, at an ATM, at a store, any different types of ways to shop, that safety and security actually originates right when that transaction starts and it carries all the way through. So if you look at what happened here, you saw the previous attack that took place. We've rolled out some new technology which we call SafetyNet, and SafetyNet basically scans all transactions on the network 24/7. It's never off, it's always on, just looking for patterns, for things that doesn't make sense, and then when it spots those transactions, it will immediately activate itself. The SafetyNet pops up and block these transactions. Now what is important to understand here is that we see billions of transactions on our network on a monthly basis, right? So the critical part here is how do we activate the safety net without inconveniencing our genuine cardholders? So the safety net that you see in the back here is very intelligent. It only picked up the cards which we used in this specific attack, and it blocked only those cards, where every other consumer still happened they still were shopping as if they were not aware of anything. So for them it was completely transparent. The banks had some cards go through, some cards not go through. I think that's where the value that we bring in terms of our technology is to be pinpointed, accurate, pick out the ones that we need to stop, and the rest we let go through. In terms of where we're going, we hear about the Internet of Things. We hear about everything being connected, devices, and we see consumers now standing inside a store completing a transaction. And where Mastercard is going with our network is to say, how do we enable those transactions to be consistently secure, irrespective of the amount of innovation that takes place.
So here's an actual attack, occurred last year. If you heard what Johan was saying, there were only 19 cards that were compromised. But with those 19 cards, they drained hundreds of ATMs. In the first 4 minutes of the attack, $5 million was taken out of ATMs. We actually had a really interesting situation during this attack in Japan, because in Japan, you can withdraw up to $10,000 per transaction. So the bad guys went, hit the Japanese ATMs, took out all the cash, walked across the street to a coffee shop, waited for the company to come refill the ATM, took it all out again. They did this 2 more times before we figured out, let's not put any more money in that ATM. The other key point I think that we need to make on this is the contrast of how we used to address fraud and how with innovations like SafetyNet, we address it. We used to take a real brute force approach when we'd see a run or a fraud attack. We'd shut down the whole bin. So the bin, is the first 6 characters of the card number. So we'd shut down those 6 characters, and every card within that bin would be disabled. With tools like SafetyNet, we only shut down the specific card. So as we see those 19 cards that were compromised, they're shut down, but everybody else in the bin is able to continue their lives, do their purchases, and feel safe about it. So it's a much better experience for the cardholder. Because we don't want to go back to the days where The saying was, the safest transaction is a declined transaction, right? Because no one loses money on a declined transaction. Probably not the best experience for the cardholder trying to make a purchase or the merchant trying to make a sale, but for us, it was really safe. So these type of tools, the key part of this is how surgical we can be in stopping the fraud attack very quickly, but at the same time letting all the other cardholders continue on with their lives. Another new tool that I wanted to highlight is MasterCard Identity Check. So when we talked about the different layers, Safety Net really encompasses the transaction layer, one of our tools for the transaction layer. MasterCard Identity Check is really about that second layer. How do we help secure the cardholder? So with smart technology comes a lot more capabilities that we can exploit. Biometrically, we don't want people to have to remember passwords. The average person uses 10 passwords or PIN codes a day. 60% of them write those down or use the same one over and over. Passwords are not a secure method. 33% of passwords are either a pet's name, a birth date, or some combination of those. 33%. I see people smiling. Yes, you know your pet, don't you? So what we want to do is move to the next generation. Passwords are a problem for the merchant. They're a problem for the experience. 1/3 of people who shop online abandon sales because they forget their password. That's a lost opportunity for the merchant. It's a lost opportunity to make a purchase. So if we can move beyond passwords and move to biometrics, then we eliminate remembering 10 passwords, everyone uses the same one because they don't want to have to remember them, or you write them down. Whoop, Andrea, I skipped you. So what I'm going to do now is have Andrea Soto come up and give you a demo of how MasterCard Identity Check works. It's a really significant innovation for us. It's live in beta testing now in both Europe and the US. And what you're going to see, it's a frictionless payment mechanism for someone to identify themselves. Andrea?
All right. Thanks, Rob. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and move over to the demo. So up to this point, I've been shopping online. I could have been shopping on my laptop or on my iPad. The example I'm going to give you here is me making a purchase while I'm shopping through my phone. So I've decided that I want to buy this speaker through Gadget Shop. Oh, excuse me. And I've already gotten past the point where I need to put in my payment credentials. I've set up the shipping arrangements, and I'm ready to just make that very last validation that I'm ready to buy. So I go ahead and click Buy Now. And my app prompts me to verify the transaction. Here's where I see that I'm ready to buy a wireless speaker from Gadget Shop for $49. As long as I'm comfortable with the transaction, I'm ready to verify it. It's really that easy. So as you saw, what I did was I went ahead and hit verify. And then I put my phone up there, and I had to pause for just a moment, and I blinked. I'm not sure if you guys saw that, but it wouldn't really activate my identity. It wouldn't verify my identity until I blinked because it needed to validate that I was a live person. I couldn't hold a picture of myself there. I couldn't throw a video up in front of the camera. It really needed to be me.
We had people taking pictures of themselves, blowing them up, cutting slits for the eyes and having strings to try to simulate blinking as well. Didn't work.
Doesn't work.
So.
Yeah. So, As a consumer, this is a really good experience. Rob was just talking about passwords. If you guys are like most people, if you forget your password, the process to go and renew it or reset your password, it's too long. We don't have time for that. By the time we go through the process, we say, forget it, we'll come back. Rarely do we come back and make the purchase. But really, we're really focused about the consumer experience as well, and this is really comfortable. It's my device, a device that I trust. I'm receiving the request to validate myself through my banking app, the bank that I trust, and I'm validating that with my face that I know others aren't able to replicate, hopefully, if they're lucky. So at the end of the day, you know, is it easy? Is it simple? Yes. But is it secure and something we also trust? Absolutely. One really cool thing, too, we talk a lot about making the transaction happen, but we also have the capability through this to stop a transaction. So if it were fraudulent and I received this prompt to validate, I would look at that and say, I'm not buying that speaker. That's not me. Cancel. So it gives me the security in the palm of my hand on the device that I trust from my bank. So just one last point as well, the selfie pay or the identity check with the facial recognition, that's kind of the hot thing that we've been talking about right now. You've probably seen a little bit of this in the media. But we're also focused on what's comfortable. We have the fingerprint biometric authentication capabilities as well. So if I wanted to continue shopping, this is just giving you a demo of using my fingerprint. I'm ready to buy. Again, I've put in my payment credentials. I've already told them how I want it shipped. Buy now. And yes, that's the thing that I want to buy. That's the amount I'm comfortable with. So I hit verify. Done. So many of us are comfortable with the fingerprint. We know how that works. We're able to use that here as well. So, you know, I guess at the end of the day, it's, again, an environment or a situation that we trust. It's comfortable, it's easy, but it's secure. Later on in the afternoon, my colleagues Dennis Gamiello and Ali Aidi are also going to be hosting a track session later on where they can get into some of the detail and tell you a little bit more about how it works. But hopefully you enjoyed the demo.
Thank you, Andrew.
Thanks.
So that's kind of an interesting, again, an interesting innovation at the second layer of security. Biometrics makes it a much more verifiable approach. It's not password-based, it's not PIN-based, but it's something that we know it's you. So people that would have then asked, well, what's after biometrics? And I know Betty DeVita from MasterCard Labs talked to you yesterday, but one of the things that we believe is the next generation is persistent authentication. So your heart rate, your EKG is as unique as your fingerprint. So if I have a wearable, a bracelet, a Fitbit, a watch that's monitoring your ECG, once I verify that's me and I don't take that off, I don't need a password. I don't need a selfie. I don't need a fingerprint. It knows it's me. Now, couple that device with the Internet of Things. When I get up in the morning, it can lock my door of my house. It can start my car. It can do the login on my computer at work. I can use it to buy my coffee. That device, as long as I keep it on my wrist and it constantly knows it's me, that persistent authentication takes passwords, takes PIN numbers, takes selfies, and takes fingerprints, biometrics, to the next level. So I think what you'll see more over the next couple of years is MasterCard innovating in the persistent authentication phase, and we'll kind of see where that goes. That's kind of the exciting part to me about innovating in the security world. It's a game that we have to win because the bad guys keep getting better and better, but we have tools and technology that can take this to the next level. The key for us, just kind of in closing, is that we work on this together. This isn't to us a competitive advantage issue. This to us is an industry issue, and how we help our cardholders, how we help our merchants make sales and purchases. So one of the things we've done, we think it's important that we get your feedback. That's why we love sessions like this on what you're seeing in the marketplace, how you view some of the innovations we're doing. We want your feedback on those. So we've put together a website, and it's I'll make sure I read this right, www.mastercard.com/tech-demo. So if we could pull that up on the phone. On the phone. There we go. This is open to everybody. It's non-proprietary, but what we have in there, you can see innovations we're doing in the acquisition space, in the customer experience space, with partnerships, and then safety and security. Where's that? Let me just go. So in safety and security, what you'll see out there are demos that are available on SafetyNet, on MasterCard Identity Check, different opportunities that you may want to look at, how it's applicable to you, and give us feedback on these. So we're gonna promise to keep this kind of an evergreen site and continually updated as we make innovations. And if it makes sense to you to go out and look at it every now and then and give us feedback on what you see, we would greatly appreciate that. Because again, in the security world, we see this as something we all have to be committed to stop the fraud that we see today. So I want to thank you for your time. Thank you for listening to us. Andrew and I'll be around for a while. If you have questions or would like to see anything else, please feel free to grab us at a break or at lunch, and we'll talk some more. But thank you for being here. Thank you for participating in this event. Again, we think this is really important, and security and innovation security is something that MasterCard looks at as our top priority. So thank you very much.